Tintern Abbey, one of Britain's most famous, most romantic ruins. For 9 nights this summer, the local community are bringing these stones to life and telling their story in a sound, light and fire spectacular, a sonne et lumière. It's called Echoes in the Stones, and it's a mammoth undertaking. The site is vast and there's a huge lighting, projection and sound system to build, and spectacular fireworks too. Not to mention nearly 200 people, performers, prop makers, costume makers, and they've asked me, Nick Bamford, to direct it all. For me, it's interesting, exciting, challenging work. But most of the company are amateurs with full-time jobs elsewhere. So why are they doing it?
Because it's a real buzz.
It's a tremendous thrill bringing so many people and their talents together.
I think there's an actor in all of us, and there's a bit of acting, it's good fun.
How many amateur actors get to perform before 1,300 people a night?
Friends. And being together with a group of people who are trying to put something on.
This is how we met in the sonne et lumière 3 years ago, and we've been friends since.
I love the whole atmosphere of it, it's so exciting.
It's creative involvement of the arts. It's the most enjoyable thing I think you can do.
Echoes in the Stones tells the story of Tintern over 2,000 years. Of the Druids with their fertility rites and human sacrifice. Of Tudric, the Celtic king who gave the place its name, dying in battle to save his people. The story of the monks who came here to found a Cistercian monastery, and those who later built the abbey. Of Henry VIII, who brought about its demise, leaving a ruin romanticised by Turner and Wordsworth.
And I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts.
It's the story of the people who have lived and worked here through 2 millennia, brought to life by those who were here at the beginning of the 3rd. The script was written by local poet Anne Cloisner.
With a poem, you never know where you're going to go, you know, you don't plan ahead. You may have a general drift in mind, but that's as much. So doing a text for a sonne et lumière is very different. You need to know where you're going.
There I pray.
Anne's script has all been pre-recorded with professional actors in Ken's studio up the road, then mixed with music and effects, so that what the live performers actually do is to mime. And we managed to persuade veteran Welsh actor Philip Maddock to be the narrator.
Well, I'd never done a sonne et lumière before, for a start, and then it was obviously my interest would be there because it is Tintern. A ravishing place to be at any time. And because the subject matter in itself, the history of the area, this beautiful area, written in such a riveting way.
Rehearsals began in the Abbey in late May, and now it's the end of June, 4 weeks to opening night. Each of the major scenes has its own assistant director, and Keith, whose day job is guiding tourists around the Abbey dressed as a monk, is looking after our Cistercians.
I remember being last time. Yes, you've got to be over there, yes. Go to your station there, and you go in D, whatever it's called, D.
Keith, who comes with me?
So I go with you, Pat.
So yeah, and then you talk to him.
Okay, we've got to bring the cart in with the flour.
It's supposed to be up there.
We bring it from down there.
What am I doing?
Down to over there, we just take it into the bakery.
Okay,
over
the bell.
I just don't know.
Everybody doing what they should be doing now?
I think they are, yes.
Right, okay, everybody know their cue? Everybody happy with their cues? Ads are still adsing, washers still washing.
The scene represents a typical day in the life of the monastery, with lay brothers and choir monks going about their business. Everyone seems to know what they're doing. My job now is to make sure they know when to do it, and to pull this and all the other scenes together.
Stop and bow together.
Keith knows just how monks should behave.
Gravitas, leaders, gravitas.
And like so many others involved in the show, he had more than one finger in the pie.
I'm finding it interesting to recreate the things that have vanished from Tintern Abbey, like the pulpitum screen, and this tomb of William Herbert, the Earl of Pembroke. The tomb disappeared, was smashed completely, probably during the Civil War.
This and his other models will be photographed and projected onto a screen the size of a house next to the Abbey. The projections are a major part of the show. As well as photos, there are original designs which have taken months to prepare. So I'm keen to see how Annie, who's coordinating it all, is getting on.
It's quite complicated because the projections go horizontally, vertically, and can even go round these days. So we've got some quite difficult things to work out, which is why we do things like this, so we can actually see what's happening as we're going along. This is for the very opening sequence, which is sort of just suggestions of glimmerings which are going to appear on the Abbey.
Susie's creating some very grisly artwork.
That's the Black Death, is it?
Yes, it is.
Right, how's that going to work?
I'm just gathering together different insects and skulls and everything at the moment, and I'm just playing on the computer, putting them together. So
again, you'll have the two images moving together, will we? And just various gruesome images moving all over the set and the screen.
This is going to be projected on the floor on the stonework
in
front
the
of the
well.
Abbey.
Right, gosh, yeah.
And just move it across towards the audience.
Simon's is more romantic.
And that's Tudrick, isn't it?
It is.
I recognise Tudrick.
This is the legend, which will be projected onto the screen.
So that's the stags, is it?
Yes, it'll start with that one. Stags coming out of the forest, coming to take Tudrick away, who's been injured in a battle. There he is on the wagon, being carted off. And apparently every time the wagon stopped, a spring comes forth so that Tudrick can drink. And there he is having a drink there, in pain.
I hope my actors look as good as that. That's the bit I've got to do. And you just follow on behind, David, mourning your poor dear dead dad. Poor dear dead dad.
The idealised images on the screen have to be acted out for real on the ground.
And this is going to be fun.
And the Abbey doorway is very real.
Oh, please. Well, can you make sure you make it so it will fit through there?
Yeah, I'll make
Good
sure
man, Sam. Brilliant. Exactly what we need.
Fortunately, as well as playing a Celtic warrior, Mark is involved in the prop-making workshops at Chepstow Leisure Centre. And so is local potter Ned Haywood, who's the producer of the show. Perhaps that's why he's playing with the biggest prop of them all, a water wheel.
The thing about the props for this event is that they have to be huge. Quite a lot of them are a long way from the audience, and it's such a wide stage. I mean, the stage is 100 yards wide. There's no point in making small props. You've got to make big props. And hopefully, it has water pouring over it, and it will turn.
Matthew's our head of props.
So how's it all going? You've got a lot of props to make, haven't you?
We are progressing, but these pesky directors keep coming up with extra things they want us to make.
Surely not. Surely not. I can't believe it.
Surely not.
So this is the maypole, is it, Matthew?
That's going to be the maypole, which we've got to try and get so it doesn't look like a piece of drain pipe.
I was going to say, it looks like a piece of drain pipe at the moment.
It definitely looks like a piece of drain pipe, and the bottom of it currently looks like a tyre.
Right.
So we're trying to get the wood stain to stick on there, so it will look a bit more wood-like.
Right.
And then we'll start attaching ribbons to it, and you'll be amazed what it can look like.
Meanwhile, next door, the Tintern sweatshop is in full swing. Sue, who's a student of textile design, has taken charge of this epic job. So just how big is the undertaking?
We worked out that there were 408 parts. So it's got to be nearly 400 costumes, isn't it?
And how many of you doing it?
At most, about a dozen of us.
OK. Can we form the arrow, then, that we had?
Bristol fight director Combat Kate has 40 assorted and untrained Celts and Saxons to transform into warlike warriors.
Celts, in your final position from, where you've berserkered through, yeah? No, for when you get down to here. Yeah, now you'll see them form that, yes? As soon as they form that, you're going to then charge on them.
The challenge is to make the fighting look convincing, but ensure that they don't actually murder each other.
Go, scatter!
No, they're not quite fearless yet. But the producer seems happy enough.
It's looking great. It's looking really good. I mean, it's you can't tell until we've actually got the screens up, the projections up, everyone in costume. And it always, in the past, has looked far more chaotic and shambolic than this. This is looking good. Bringing in professionals who've got their own imaginations and ideas, and they put them into practice. And I just thought of two shield walls, but the way that Kate's got them moving together, interacting, is really exciting.
Cricket game, linen, bric-a-brac and refreshment stall laid, and the ladies setting them up following at once.
Retired schoolteacher Anne Llewellyn has taken on the job of marshalling nearly the whole company into what I think is the most ambitious scene in the show, an Edwardian fete.
Are you starting the scene?
Yeah.
Just get them all stood by and then tell them exactly how you're going to cue it, otherwise they won't latch on them.
Stalls on, hoopla, greasy pole, piano and stools, horn gramophone, may pull when you get time. Liz Sayers.
I'm looking for my daughters.
Bring your girls up here a minute. We've got to sort this out because they're crossing the Duchess when they go. They have to wait till she's gone.
I have no control over the man.
You're supposed to have.
Don't see me as a figure of authority.
I do.
There's a dozen different activities being performed at the same time.
Give them the side of job, please, Patrick. Right. Several dancers, please. If you can waltz at all, get out there and do it.
Anne's given herself a major headache. So why on earth did she take it on?
Brilliant. Go on, Liz. Megalomania, I think. The idea of being able to tell large numbers of people what to do, I think it's quite good fun.
Honoured that Her Grace, the Duchess of Beaufort, has consented to open the fete.
The curious business of miming to a pre-recorded script can feel, and to the cast look, very silly. But it's a challenge Mike rises to with relish.
In respect of which there is still about £30 due.
In one of my other lives, I'm a voice mimic, so I can do my vicar's voice, which, so do the vicar's voice in your head and then you go into part.
Everybody else, you've got plenty of activities. Straighten that quilt out. That looks a mess, that store. All right, tenor, go on, do your stuff.
Ben's one of our stalwarts.
Charlie, don't stand like that. Make a little ring round it. Watch him. Brilliant. I don't like the horn gramophone that far forward. Will you please take it back to where you're standing, Neil? Yes. Right, finish that now. We have to sort a few things out. My fault. I messed up the beginning bit. I know from past experience that it looks like a shambles to begin with, and it looks as if nothing is ever going to come from it. But it really is even more together than usual by this stage, so I'm every confidence it will be a fantastic show in the end.
Well, we've got a couple more rehearsals to get it right. With less than a week to go to the opening of our Sonnet Lumière, the hardware starts to go in. Lighting towers for some of the 186 lanterns and 3.5 kilometres of cable to connect them all up. There are control rooms for sound, light and projection, not to mention the huge screen, 13 metres wide by 10 high. Stage manager Kate and her team bring in the props. There's over 600 of those. There are several van loads of costumes. Now we must put the whole show together for the first time, and we have just one day to do that.
Keep your wits about you, keep concentrating. We've got a hell of a lot to get through today.
Patrick! Tom Harvey!
Tim Love!
Jamie! Harry Middleditch. Nick Coverley!
Katie Johns.
I want to see you put this one on, Lynn!
David Stringer!
You've had a haircut, David.
Heather on!
Sexy!
This particular stage of the game is very difficult, and nobody knows where we are, what we're doing, where we're going, and there's a little bit of panic going on in the back of everyone's heads.
Obviously you get nervous, yes, particularly when you don't know what scenes you're in. But it's good fun.
It's the dancing that'll get me. As long as I get me dancing right, we'll be all right.
Is Matt feeling confident about the props?
It comes together if, as the panic mounts, everything works.
So if we keep roughly those positions, but you just come back, you get a stone.
There are still some scenes we've never rehearsed.
And then come back, get another stone. That kind of thing. Okay.
Run.
Fortunately, producer Ned knows how to use a sling.
Yeah.
I let that go, but you...
That's it, that's nice, that's good, good. Yeah. We now have another major problem, which I just realised, of course, that Ross has got to go over to you can't get the cart past it.
Carts, the bane of our lives.
Made some measure, Nick. Where's the Chudrick cart that should have finished up in the Abbey? It's about 5 carts, I think.
What is the collective now for
A rolling of carts?
A clutch of carts.
You got plenty of carts.
A confusion of carts.
Confusion of carts, very definitely, yes.
The sound system's going in, and Phil has several large speakers to sight.
The height of the top box, unless it's actually about here,
the sound will just hit the walls and just bounce off.
And Henry VIII's got problems too.
The royal behind.
Anne, can you come and be executed, please?
Towards the end of the afternoon, we're all tired and maybe a tad tetchy, and Anne meets her fate.
I think we better do that again, don't you?
That setting up section is now too short. We can't cope with it. We have to get it.
No, leave it with me, Anne. I'll sort it. I want to try it as soon as the music starts. So it's really everybody's cue. It's the cue for the start of the thing. Fate. Okay? Can we try it? Yep, please. Reset, everybody. Sorry, we've got to get this right.
This is the first time we've had a good chance to run through and be able to get in amongst them and do some actual directing. This is the last time anybody's going to be happy for 4 years. We've got to give an impression of happiness, and this is a slightly nostalgic bit for everyone. Is that okay? Have I made myself clear or not at all?
Reset for the first scene again. Let's go again on this first scene.
Now you moved them onto the forward, but that's too much behind the wall.
Sorry, I haven't moved them anywhere, Anne.
Right, they told me you had. I beg your pardon.
Well,
Can you...
hang on, let's agree. Where do you want to put them?
Courtyard labelled 5.
Well, that's where they were dancing.
No, they were not. They were dancing in 8. And that's not where they should be.
Go and stand where you think they were dancing and where you want them to dance. I think we need to run this once again to see how this is going to work.
They seem to be keeping their heads remarkably better than I am.
The arrival next day of the audience seating for 1,300 people is a timely reminder of the rapidly approaching opening night. But there's plenty of midnight oil to burn first. Lisa has to plot and run the lighting, so how does she rate the job?
Big. Big, very ambitious. Should be good though, doesn't it?
We have only a few hours of darkness to try all the lighting cues, and Lisa has a major irritation: mosquitoes. It's also a first chance for Joe to try out some of the pyrotechnics.
Let me fire this one off, see what we think, see what everyone here thinks, and then obviously make a decision. Arrow's finished! Thank you!
And Joe's not the only one with fire on his mind.
Right, after conjuring human love and fertility, the maidens start the dance, and 25 seconds after that, the fire comes on.
Okay.
Marianne, head of Druids, is sorting out some fire cues with Kate. Getting it lit and on is one thing, but then what do you do with it?
Yeah, I'll wait until it goes up.
Find some mug from the stage crew who'll just stand there.
For the next hour until this goes up. Better if you do your twirling rather than me.
Or call in Henry VIII in body paint.
Okay, clear?
Yeah. Music needs to start fading up on Nora's King Tudrick.
Okay.
Works nicely with the dance, that cross light. It's good.
And so it goes on, till 3 in the morning, mosquitoes and all. All too soon, it's opening night. The rain holds off, ticket sales are looking good, and as darkness falls, the audience pours in.
Programs, anybody?
Amongst the first on are the Druid maidens. Fertility rites, fire and human sacrifice get things off to a dramatic start.
Fire is a symbol of death, but of rebirth too.
Ex-Druid Ben is now a Saxon, and it's time for the battle scene. Kate's holding her breath. The scene's thrilling and Tudrick dies in style.
As if to mark this place as a place for seekers, Tintern itself takes its name from his hermitage, the Welsh Tintern, the king's fortress. Tintern.
All change from fearless warriors to God-fearing monks, then included.
Every inch, your brother.
Matins, dark before dawn.
All rise to greet the rising sun, bringing their own lights one by one.
The painstaking work on the projections comes to spectacular fruition, covering the entire abbey as well as the huge screen and dwarfing the victims of the Black Death.
It strikes at the young and the old, the poor and the rich, the good and the bad alike. Should the Pope declare this marriage invalid, the King, a bachelor once more, could wed Anne Boleyn, who is Catherine's young and beautiful lady-in-waiting.
But as Henry VIII dances his way through his 6 wives, a minor crisis is developing backstage.
14! What's the movie on that? 13!
Mark, have you got any pins in any of the costumes?
No! Okay, my next is next.
Mark, just go. If they fall down, just smile.
But Mark makes it, and the trousers hold up.
For more than 300 years, these valleys ring with the roar of open furnaces, the thud of hammers, the groan of metal, the grind and creak of massive water wheels.
Has anyone noticed the water wheels going the wrong way? Ah well, there's plenty of industry backstage as all change for the fate. Anne's moment of truth.
We are honoured that Her Grace, the Duchess of Beaufort, has consented to open the fete. We are indebted also to Lady Edward Somerset.
Like most things have tonight, the fete has run like clockwork. In the glow of the fireworks stands a community, a couple of hundred very proud people, and I'm one of them.